So this is for all the beginners out there, all the novices, all the spring chickens that are like, I want to get into investing, but I don't know where to start. We've got a beginner workshop on the 16th of June. It's free, which is great.
We're going to teach you what a stock is. We're going to talk about how regularly you should be investing. We're going to talk about lots of different places you can put your money.
And what even is investing.
Yeah. It's for anyone who is thinking, I've heard this investing stuff, don't really know where to start. So we would love for you to come along. It's totally free. We'll put a link for you to register in the podcast show notes.
Welcome to The Curve Weekly, the podcast that keeps you up to date with all of the money, business and stock market tea.
Brought to you by the Curve's research team. It's the latest insights on what's happening in the stock market, companies, other money-related news so that you can stay educated and ahead of the curve.
You can thank us later for sounding smarter than those finance bros at your next dinner party. So in this episode, we talk about the KiwiSaver changes that have been going on in New Zealand. So if you're not in New Zealand, you can skip that whole section. We talk about UnitedHealthcare, and just a trigger warning, we talk about Assassination in that part. And then we finish with a bit more lighthearted news about Victoria's Secret.
Oh my God, Vic, before we start, I've got a present for you.
Is it a calculator?
No. No. It's from this really cool bookshop in LA, and like the coolest part. And I was like, this is quite good.
My God, that is really cute.
It's a new book. It's a new bookmark for you.
It says, Mom, I am a rich man. Love it.
Quite on brand.
Very, very on brand. Love
it's
it.
Literally the intro to our podcast.
I just bought 2 books as well. So perfect.
I did have to bring 3 whole suitcases back with me.
Oh, shit.
So I had to get a small gift that wasn't going to take up space or weight.
Push you over the threshold.
No.
Be worried if it did.
Do you know how expensive it is to pay for overweight baggage? It is.
For me, when I was going from Japan to London, it was cheaper to upgrade than pay for extra luggage.
What do you mean upgrade to a new?
Not
whatever. It's much cheaper for me to go to business class.
No, to upgrade from economy to premium was like, I don't know, it's £300 or something, but to add an extra bag was £200. I was like, well, that's a no-brainer. An extra £100,
oh
and I get
God.
yeah.
Maybe I could have upgraded.
Yeah, good to have you back.
Great to be back. God, the admin of flying though.
It's like the studio was in a bit of a state when Soph walked in. You know, it's kind of like when your parents go on holiday and they come back and you're like rushing around and you're trying to clean up and you're like.
Speaking of, who killed the plant in here? We had a really beautiful plant. It's now dead.
I think we need to get a fake plant. This is a studio with no light, no air. Is no place for a living creature.
I actually hate a fake plant so
Same.
much. I came back into my room, which I rented out, which, by the way, honestly saved me financially. Like, it's so admin finding sublets when you're in like a house share, particularly because your flat, you could come back and your flatmate's like, we hate you, the person that you got in.
Especially when you're like, I'm not coming back for another month. Another month. They're like,
kidding.
They're like, Greg is really driving us insane, please.
Actually, yeah, because I was meant to go for 6 weeks and then ended up being 4.5 months. But anyway, I came back and my plant in my room was dead.
Oh, you have one job, like, you know?
Well, they were paying rent, so I can't exactly be like.
But they were living with a dead plant.
I mean, look, it doesn't matter how often I try and like keep a plant alive. We've just admitted, you know, it's actually strangely probably more difficult than keeping alive a dog or something. Like getting the watering schedule right. This is the most boring chat we have had in ages.
And we have so much to talk about.
Okay, let's just shut up and get straight to it.
Firstly, there's been some massive changes in New Zealand to do with superannuation and KiwiSaver. So the New Zealand budget was released. A budget is when a government sets, you know, revenue and expenses for a country. And they look at everything that's happened in the past, what they need to achieve in the future, whether they need to invest in like healthcare, education. Okay, where's that money coming from? You know, they're kind of like balancing the books.
It's like a personal balance sheet.
Exactly. It's like a personal budget, and they look at, do we need to increase taxes and get more income in because we've got increased spending? Anyway, one of the things that came out of it is KiwiSaver. And this has kind of been rumoured for a while that they were tinkering with KiwiSaver. And there's 3 main changes that I want to run through.
Can I just ask before you get into it, did you feel like an economist, the amount of people messaging us being like, what's going on with KiwiSaver? I need to hear Vic talk about it. There was so many messages. I was like, is Vic turned into like, I don't know, a New Zealand economist? I was quite impressed at how many people.
It's actually quite good because our community was like, hey, FYI, the budget's tomorrow and there's going to be announcements on KiwiSaver. I was like, thank you. And then also I put out a post that was very incorrect.
That's right.
I was like walking at like 6:30 in the morning and I was reading the news and I like, hadn't had my coffee yet and I was like, you know what? I'm going to like really front foot like our social media girl and like Soph, and I'm going to be onto this and give them the content, you know, before they ask for it, because usually like, Vic, can we get this from you? Anyway, so I did it and I was like, yeah, cool, now tick, yeah, on my way to work. And then bless our social media girl, she was like, Vic, I think there's some things wrong. And I was like, oh,
also for anyone that doesn't know
Vic
is like, there could be a full stop in the wrong place and she's like, I think we need to take that down. That's actually incorrect.
I know. I was just like, and she's like, we're all human, babe. I was like, I know, but like, God. Anyway, so I put up a new post, essentially. So this podcast is 100% correct. I have.
Okay,
yeah,
nice.
Yes. But firstly is that people earning over $180,000 now per year no longer get the government contributions. So remember each year.
At all.
So remember, each year, if you put in $1,042 a year or more, you got $521 from the government. Like, no questions asked. And now, if you earn over $180,000, you get nothing. Which means that it's what we call means tested, which it's never kind of been before. It's like everyone's been treated exactly the same. Anyone earning below that now gets half what they used to in terms of the government contribution. So it's gone from $521 to like $260.
Why? What's the main reason? Like, I mean, obviously they look at the budget and they think like, where can we cut?
Yeah.
What's got to come out, blah, blah, blah. But like, how is that going to impact people? Like, what does that actually look like?
Yeah. Well, like if we look back when KiwiSaver first started, there was so many incentives to get people in it, right? There was $1,000 just when you opened an account. There was $1,000 a year in government contributions that then dropped to 500-ish. Now it's dropped to 260. Like they started with like a hiss and a roar, I guess, and now it's being scaled back and scaled back. This cut in contributions from the government is kind of, I guess, the thing that F's me off the most, because that member tax credit amount wasn't adjusted for inflation anyway. So
it's already lower than it should have been. It's already
each year becoming quote unquote less and less. And there is very few incentives for us to contribute to our KiwiSaver, apart from the fact that contributions come out before tax. So you kind of get, you don't have to get paid, get taxed, and then put them back into your superannuation or to your KiwiSaver.
So most people are like,
I know. But anyway, there's very little incentives. And so that was kind of, I guess, one of the key things that's like, oh, cool, I get free money from the government. But you still do, but not if you're earning over 180,000. So that was one of them. One thing to remember with that, though, is you still have until the 30th of June this year to get that full amount. So it starts from the 1st of July. So if you haven't put your money in for this year, if you haven't put in $1,042 or more, then go ahead and do that, because you'll get the full $521. It's the last year you can do it.
Oh, how annoying.
I know. The other thing is they're changing the contribution rate. So the default contribution rate, if you don't choose any percentage, is 3%.
Which is already low. Like 3% is not a lot.
Australia, it's over 10%.
Yeah. I think you need perspective. I think that's a really good comparison, because when you hear that, if you don't really know a lot about investing or how much whatever, not that sounds condescending, but point is, back in the day, I used to think 3% and what, Yeah. And actually I opted out of the lowest one. So it doesn't, maybe it sounds like a lot for someone who isn't used to the idea of putting money aside regularly or whatever. But I guess in the scheme of things, 3% globally is like the most minuscule amount, to the point where we often say, like, if you've got no kids, if you don't have like a huge amount of outgoings, like the more you can contribute, the better. Like 100%. Opt higher, way higher.
One thing I'd done when I was younger, when I was in that exact position, earning lots, had very low, didn't have a mortgage, don't have kids.
Like, I wish I could go back.
Totally. And be like, just put 10% in. So so it's going from 3% up to 4%.
Oh, that's good. At least there's that.
Woo, 1%.
Yeah. But I mean, I thght you were going to say it's going backwards.
No, it's going from 3 to 4, and the employer contributions will match that. So you'll be going from 6% to 8%.
Oh, well, at least there's that.
And it will be staggered. So it's not like you're going to wake up next year and it's be 4%. It's going to go 3.5 to 4. So by 2028, it'll be 4%.
2028?
I know. Yeah.
Good Lord. They're really stretching that one out.
Yeah. So the thing is that you can opt out. So you can opt down to stay at 3%. Do not do this, anybody. I can't even believe it. I shouldn't have even put it in the podcast.
Yeah. It shouldn't even be an option.
But if you opt for 3%, your employer can drop down to 3% too. So just follow the rules, everyone. Just, don't opt out. Anyway, what I was hoping would come out of this is that
the budget or
and the KiwiSaver changes is that it would be mandatory. There is 1.2 million people in New Zealand who still do not have KiwiSaver. The other thing is that they're also introducing employer and government contributions for 16 and 17-year-olds, which is really, really cool because it only ever started at 18. So it's encouraging people to invest early, start thinking about their retirement early, which
so you can now. I didn't even realize you could get KiwiSaver. I thought that you had to be 18. Is that the whole point?
That's the change. Yeah. So the change is that if you're working and you're 16 or 17, then you can start contributing, and you could always contribute, but you wouldn't get the benefits of the employer matching and the government contributions.
And now it's the same.
Yeah.
So the employer as well as
employer and government. Yeah. So it's like encouraging young people to not only work but contribute and start thinking about their retirement.
Emily, sorry, one moment, everyone. I'm just going to ask our producer something quickly. Did you have a job at 16?
Yeah, at 16. I was on a cheese counter in a supermarket.
Were you actually? Oh, like how much brie would you like? Or just wait it? Would you like a bit more?
Literally cutting up slices of cheese. Oh my God. Also, so the first weekend that I ever worked, I was cutting up like this huge piece of ham and it was so noisy and I couldn't hear the machine going. And I picked up this huge piece of ham, put it in a meat slicer and cut all my fingers. Yeah, it was awful.
Holy shit, I did not see it going that way.
No.
So did you like nearly lose your fingers?
I was quite close to the bone. It wasn't fatal, obviously.
Shit, okay, so you did have a job.
Yeah, at 16, yeah.
Okay.
Because we did, I'm sure that we got government, we were able to put into our pension at that age.
Like, I mean, you can set your kids up with a KiwiSaver, like you can do it for kids and a lot of people do. It's just, there's no benefit really from the employer or the government. So you may as well put it into like a normal fund is kind of what I'm saying.
Yeah. I just feel like if...
Your job at 16?
Yeah, I did gymnastics so intensely when I was at school. Like I was competing for New Zealand and training like before and after school. Like it was so intense.
Yeah.
So I actually didn't really have time. I did random stuff in the summer holidays, like working at the horse races every now and again, or like, random catering jobs.
Also, KiwiSaver wasn't around when we were 16 or 17.
Back in the day.
I was thinking, I was like, did I? And I was like, oh no, too old.
I mean, I had jobs, like I did housekeeping and stuff like that, like for like summer stints, but I didn't have a consistent.
How good is babysitting? You just sit there, eat their food, watch TV and get paid for it?
Yeah.
Like, I want to babysit now. That's probably a bit creepy.
Do you reckon you could get a government, what would that look like? Would you be like asking the parents like, also an extra 4% to
you
my
need to match
KiwiSaver?
you need to match my babysitting earnings. Thank you.
I would do that. In fact, any children listening, if you babysit, that's a great idea. Be like, just so you know, my rates increased and I would like the percentage.
There's actually been changes in the New Zealand budget. I'm not sure if you saw, and you have to pay tax on it, which kind of.
But it is, the point, Emily, the reason I was wanting to ask you was I feel like it's motivating when you know that stuff early. It's just that I didn't know anything about money.
And also when you're 16, 17, you're not earning a hell of a lot either. And so the government contributions of like $200 a year
is a lot.
Like it can really move the needle.
Also, it's a law in the UK that you're automatically opted in. Like you actually have to go out of your way to change it. Is that the same with KiwiSaver?
No.
Damn, oh my God, the UK's got one thing right.
If you're under 22, you don't though.
If you're under 22, it's not automatically.
Yeah.
Oh, and then when you turn 22, it is.
And I think that's the whole thing. Vic was saying she wished that in this budget it had come out that auto enrollment was a thing, so it was automatic. Because it's so, I think the idea of making people think about, do I want to put money aside for retirement? Everyone's going to say no, because when you're 18, the idea of being old and grey is like honestly a lifetime away.
And 3% in your pocket is so much better than 3% going into my retirement.
I can go and buy
I've got my whole life to save for my retirement.
Yeah.
I want to go to the movies.
Point is, New Zealand hasn't really come out of the gate swinging with a stunning policy.
But I think the key takeaway from this, and if you're anywhere in the world, is check who your superannuation or pension or KiwiSaver provider is, and are you happy with what they're delivering in terms of performance. If you're young, you should be in kind of like a high risk, high growth fund. If you're older, so, 10 years until retirement, then you should be in more of a conservative kind of lower growth fund. Any New Zealanders, make sure you go and check that you have put in at least $1,042 into your KiwiSaver this year by the 30th of June. Don't leave it till the 30th of June though, because it takes a couple of days to transfer your money. So do like 20th. Yeah. Something else I wanted to mention, and this kind of came about from our conversation last week.
Okay, so I was actually really excited to talk about this because, so for anyone that didn't listen last week, I went through LA on my way back to the UK, and I really loved America. I was like, oh, this is so fun, love being here. But the healthcare system and the like lack of safety nets for people, health-wise, insurance-wise, like everything is just kind of a bit scary. And you mentioned briefly, the assassination of the CEO of UnitedHealth, or you mentioned something and I hadn't heard of it.
Yeah.
And then I mentioned it to my friend who I was staying with, and I started seeing all these like T-shirts everywhere with like Luigi's face on it, who's the guy who did the assassination, basically assassinated the CEO of this huge healthcare system called UnitedHealth. And I like went into a rabbit hole looking into it, and basically his whole thing was just like the healthcare system in the US is absolutely FUCKED, and he was just wanting to.
And I think it came about because he had some personal situation. Like,
I tried to find that out and I couldn't.
Well, that's what everyone thought, because it was like, why would you go and do that anyway? But
the whole of the US, not the whole of the US, but there's a lot of people that are Team Luigi because he's up for the death penalty. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Which I was shocked by. Like, I genuinely didn't realize that existed.
Anyway, you were right in saying the US doesn't have a fully public healthcare system. So you do need to get private health insurance. You can do it by paying yourself, through your employer. There is Medicaid and Medicare, which is like for older people and people with low income. So there is some kind of support, but most people in America, you have to have private health insurance.
It also must be really, the threshold to get that would be super low, because I'm pretty sure there was public health care, even as you're saying.
No, it's very low incomes, and it obviously varies by state and state.
Because there's so many people that just don't go to the doctor because they just can't afford it.
Exactly, because there's a lot of out-of-pocket expense as well. It's not like you're covered with your private health insurance and, you know, you can go as many times you want, get all it's literally, you still have to pay a lot.
So you have to pay. So basically, sorry if we're repeating this and people already know, but I think this is shocking. So you could pay around $1,000 a month for private healthcare, and like that can be scaled up or down. That is like your base case. But then your out of pocket,
it can also be on top.
It goes up to like $4,000 before your healthcare kicks in. So for a lot of people who can't afford $4,000 worth of anything, avoid, won't go to any appointments, won't take their kids, which is obviously why so many people's conditions get to the point where they're so bad. And it's really sad, really sad.
And this has kind of been a bit of backlash on pharmaceutical companies as well, right? Because they charge ridiculous prices for these drugs. And there's been political discussions around having caps on certain prices and all of that. And like, if your insulin injection, for example, that you literally cannot live without, was say $1,000 a month, like how crippling that would be. Talk about this for,
but it does make you realise in places like the UK with the NHS how incredible that is. If you're in New Zealand or Australia, like how lucky you are to have a healthcare system that supports and looks after people.
But it's also like no country has it worked out, right? Like there's always, you'll find people in New Zealand that get, you know, incredibly frustrated with the fact, you know, that they still have to pay certain amounts.
Or wait,
or like they'll be waiting 3 years for a surgery, or like, you know, there's always issues and no one has it fully figured out yet.
The thing that I thought was interesting about the US was I was like, oh, well, why would they not just add that into taxes? Why would they not just add and my friend was like, do you know how expensive our taxes are? She's like, I pay federal tax, so like the country's tax, and state tax.
Yeah.
And then imagine putting, she was saying there's like $3,000 or something out of her pay every month that goes just to tax. Like that's like my whole salary.
Also what politician is going to be like, we're going to increase taxes? Like no politicians do that to get like until they're in power and then they can.
Well, I think that's the biggest issue globally when it comes to politics, money, the economy, is that a lot of countries are broken in areas but it's so hard for a government to bring in or bring about change in the things where there's like serious issues, because
and if you increase taxes for the wealthy so that you can help less fortunate people with healthcare, the wealthy people are not going to vote for you. They're the ones that probably also would support politicians. You know, there's so much.
It's very Hunger Games.
Like politics. Like there literally is so much and it's like, okay, well, if we tax companies, but then that impacts the stock market because they will have to less profits, which means
it's a big seesaw.
It's honestly like you really want to tweak this little bit, but it's like has 10 flow-on effects. Yeah. So UnitedHealthcare, its share price is down 50% in the last 6 months. This is the largest healthcare company in the US. So it's about a $270 billion company. To put that in perspective, the nearest competitor is like $85 billion. So it's like miles ahead. Yeah. So obviously when the CEO was assassinated, there was another person that stepped up into the CEO role. He has just left. So people are like, what the hell? Like,
God, I'd be so scared to
you'd
be in that
You'd be
role.
demanding 24-hour day, 7 days a week security.
24-hour day, 7. Someone needs a nap.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week security. Wow.
24/7.
24/7. Yeah, we get it. When you say 24/7, you don't need to explain it. It's like when you say dub and World Wide Web.
Gosh, that would be a really scary role to go into.
Totally. And let alone, like, yes, your life is at risk, but just also the backlash you must get just walking down the street, you know, just everything, going into investor updates, going to conferences, like you just...
It would also take a particular type of person to take that job, though.
Yeah.
Because if you know what the US healthcare system's like, you understand the business. You gotta be. I mean, I couldn't think of any job I would want less than doing something like that, because you would know there's not a lot of wiggle room in terms of what you can do to change or like better the company, or maybe actually there's someone that steps in there and wants to change in a good way. I don't know.
When you're the biggest company dealing with millions and millions of customers, even if it's like 0.1% that is disgruntled, that is still like so many people. Do you know what I mean? Whereas if you're a smaller company, you've got a few pissed off customers, it's not the big end of the world. So that's kind of concerning investors. Why has he stepped down? There's also been a criminal investigation into some kind of billing fraud that's been going on. So they've been inflating some medical costs in a way to get more government funding. And like there's just like there's kind of
because I think also the other thing was, this is coming off of no research and purely what I was told, but this particular healthcare company is like known for doing anything they can to get out of paying a claim. And that was kind of, I think, all led into why there was the assassination, because not only is the US healthcare system absolutely like terrible, but this particular company was like kind of known for trying to find loopholes in any kind of payout.
Yeah, their recent financial result as well, they didn't give any guidance, and so people are like, okay, you have no idea what the future of your business is going to look like. There's kind of PR disasters, the CEO's just left, you've just been done for fraud. Like there's a lot going on that kind of makes me think I'm going to stay clear of this one. But if you're invested in the S&P 500 in an ETF,
you're invested in it.
Yeah.
Side note, I forgot to tell you this. So when I was flying through LA, I got this call from a family friend on my way to the airport being like, Sophie, make sure that you delete anything relating to Trump anywhere that you've got. And I was like, hold on a second, what are you talking about? And he was like, I know 2 people that have tried to go through the States and have been sent away because they've got this enormously strict ban on no negative talk about the government, i.e. Donald Trump. And
it's very
I was like, is this North Korea? Like, this is scary. Like,
it's very kind of China
dictatorship.
It's very dictatorship. Yeah.
And I just was like, holy shit. Like, and I went onto the Curves Instagram, of course, where we're like, well, we've got like a full-time podcast where we're like, Trump, sucks. And it was literally, I was like, oh my God, I had to delete the At the Curve platform Instagram off my personal account and log out because I was so scared that I was going to be like deported.
I had a friend that went to New York last week and she did the same.
But I'm sorry, isn't that quite scary? Like, we're talking about like freedom of speech being taken away from people where you can't have an opinion if you disagree. Like, that's terrifying.
They checked my phone when I was turned away at the border.
Should we also just maybe give context as to why you were turned away at the border? Because people might be thinking you're growing marijuana in your basement. She was illegally working in the US.
I wasn't. I'd been to the States twice for work, and then I'd come home and I'd quit my job and I wanted to move to New York. And I
had a leaving party.
Had a leaving party. Everyone was like texting me going, oh my God, I found in New York. Yeah. And I was on a E1 visa. Sorry, I was on a B1, B2 visa, which allows you to go there, interview, but just not, and have like job interviews, but not sign a contract. You cannot start employment. And so I had a return flight 3 months later, and I was like, I've got enough money to give myself 3 months of finding a job. If I don't find a job, I have to come home. Anyway, they pulled me aside when I got to Houston, and they were like asking me a whole bunch of questions, and I was so naive that I almost gave a bit of attitude, and I think that kind of sparked them. And then
you probably felt super arrogant.
They were like, can you just sit here? We're just going to get someone else in to talk to you. And I was like, yeah, whatever. And then they bring in this lady, and I was like, oh, thank goodness it's a lady. I thought like, oh, she'll get it. She'll understand. I sat down, arms crossed, and was like, kind of ready to say my piece. And she's like, uncross your legs, uncross your arms, look at me when I'm talking to you. And I was like, holy freaking Jesus. And I was like, I'm fucked. But it was so, I was guilty. Like, there's no innocent until you're proven guilty. I was guilty from the get-go. And then all the messages, they called my friends and they were like, yeah, she's moving to New York. And so I was, but I'm not on this visa, but they just didn't anyway. And it was the day that Trump got into power and put a ban on to like countries like Iran, and like, so the airport was absolute chaos. Like, I shouldn't have flown. But anyway, huge learning experience, and was on the next flight home.
Then
arriving home.
You had police like taking you on the plane, right?
Yeah.
That is so scary. Can you imagine?
I was like, I wonder if people think I'm like famous or like.
That's what you thought. I would have been like, people think I'm a murderer.
No,
people
but the looks I was getting
drug.
on the Air New Zealand flight. If you saw someone being escorted by police on an Air New Zealand flight, you would be like,
I'm surprised you didn't make it into like the paper or something.
And the bliss, like Air New Zealand, absolutely loved them. I sat down. It was the first time I'd actually had some ounce of respect or like empathy. And this lady, I wish I got her name. She was like, here's a box of tissues, here's a bottle of water. Like, we have to take your passport until you land. I'm like, I'm not jumping out of the airplane halfway. Like, anyway, I was like, yeah, whatever. And she was like, let me know if you need anything else.
And
I
just
bawled for the next 13 hours.
Yeah. Did you cry the whole way home?
I had no tears when I got home. And I remember, this is so off topic, but I'm like really into it. I remember I got home, and the worst was my parents, just their faces going,
oh,
and their arms.
So we feel sorry for you face.
Yeah. And like, the last time they'd saw me, I was setting off on my dreams.
Shit. That was a real life pivot.
Well, I just never had a plan B. That was my plan. I was going to New York. I was going to like work on Wall Street. Amazing. And
imagine if we could say Vic Harris used to work on Wall Street.
Yeah. But the awkward thing was then emailing all the interviews I had lined up saying, I'm so sorry.
I've been deported.
I've been deported. I was like, but I'm going to work it out. It's fine. Let's have a second interview. It's fine. And they're like, just let us know when you get here. And I was like, what am I, 7 years later?
So anyway, the point here is you don't really want to be, well, the point is that the US is turning into North Korea.
Yes.
And, flying through there, it's actually kind of scary.
Can I get something out of this? If there's any lawyers that want to help me.
Yeah. Pro bono.
Pro bono. We'll give you a shout out on the podcast. Oh. Or anyone that works in Homeland Security. Would be great.
Oh, it's quite funny.
Yeah.
I do think it's one of your best stories. Like the fact that you've been kind of denied access to the United States. I sort of love it.
Yeah.
It's a good story.
Lassie.
And moving on. There was a few things I actually really
Victoria's
liked.
Secret.
Yeah.
They've had obviously another company that's been a bit of a PR disaster over the last few years. They've got a new CEO in. She's a female, thank goodness. Hopefully to turn the company around.
Why have they been in? What's been happening the last few? Is it just the idea that
that's what a typical woman should look like, and it's men sitting around a board table.
It's kind of the Barbie movie in real life.
Yeah, and it's like this is what everyone's aspiring to look like. Anyway, it hasn't done very well lately, and there has been an investor that has been sneakily buying shares. Or just, when we were talking about like you can buy shares and you get to a certain threshold and you have to make a takeover for the company. So he has been.
I don't reckon that's so fun. Like, oh, here I am, like sneakily buying shares. And then I'm like, hi, I'm taking over the company.
Yeah. It's like, who is it? And Sophie Horright's like, hi, I'm going to own Victoria's Secret.
Me. Here I am.
Hi.
Oh my God. Okay, right.
Yeah.
So who is it?
So his name's Brett Blundy, and he's a very, very well-known Australian retailer, and he started Lavisa, the jewellery company. He owned Adairs, the furniture company.
Quite interesting brand. So he's actually had
he's got such
feminine approach to business or like ideas.
And he did a lot in Australia, and now he's moved to the US, and he is doing a lot in the US. Like when I read this headline, I was like, if he's going to take over Victoria's Secret, I want in.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Interesting.
He's just one of those operators who's just found his niche, which is retail, and just finds a format and runs with it. And he's obviously seen something in Victoria's Secret that he likes, but it's just not working quite as well as it could. It's got potential.
Well, it's sort of like if you look at how well Skims is doing and other big like lingerie brands, there is a huge market for it. But yeah, Victoria's Secret is I've got a Victoria's Secret sports bra that has like Victoria on the front. And it used to be so cool, and I used to love it. And I remember it actually must have been the last time I was in the US, I found a store and I went in and I got so excited. And I'd wear my Victoria, sports bra proudly. Now, if you can see Victoria underneath my shirt.
Yeah, you're like, wear another shirt.
Oh, wear another top.
Yeah. But what the company has done is they've adopted what's called a poison pill. And it sounds dramatic. Everything in
it's like Romeo and Juliet.
Everything in finances is so dramatic. There's blood on the streets. We'll give you a poison pill.
The company's on its knees. Yeah. You're like, okay.
And what it does is it gives all existing investors rights to buy more shares, essentially. So therefore, he's diluted. So he's trying to climb up and get to the certain threshold,
oh my
and then
God,
he gets pushed
this is
back down.
quite cool.
Yeah. And
so the poison pill is to try and get him out.
Yes, it's to try and get him his percentage lower and lower and lower, so that he can't have any influence, essentially.
What's the comms that the business takes to try and tell other shareholders to do that? Because if your reaction was like, if he's trying to buy it, I want in. How would they spin that in a different way?
Well, the board would puts forward like a strategy of how they're going to turn it around, and like, this is what we've got in place. This is how it's, we're already tracking. It's already improving. Like, almost trust us.
Right. So they're trying to be like, don't let
Brett
make his way up the ranks. We've got it covered. It's
essentially, yeah.
But what sort of?
But Skims, it's funny you mentioned Skims, because that's been one of the biggest impacts on Victoria's Secret.
Oh, I'm
like
not
competition,
surprised.
The tariffs. There's been, they've had really struggling sales for a long time.
Do you know I've got a really controversial view on Skims after having tried them for the first time? They're too thin. I don't like the material. I don't know if I'm like,
I love it.
Yeah, you were banging on about how good they are. So I bought so many pairs, and now I'm like, I don't know if I like them.
I can't try them on. Like you can in Selfridges and stuff, but they've got quite a small range.
I just don't think there's enough there. They're kind of like not underwear.
Yeah, I love that though.
Yeah, anyway.
Yeah. So anyway, it's just an interesting thing for the board to do. They're obviously very, very nervous that he's going to get a controlling stake and buy, go bid for a takeover of Victoria, or not even a takeover. He might just be like, look, I want a board seat. I've got 15% of the shares. I deserve a board seat. And then he can dictate the strategy, and it can create some frictions at the board, because obviously you've got one side of the board that wants to do one thing. You've got him wanting to do another. Like, this is like why capital markets, like the stock market, exists, so that your shares are available to the public. They should be. If you're underperforming, let someone else have a go. Do you know what I mean? Like, don't come out with this strategy. Just do a good job then, is kind of my thinking. Otherwise, someone else will come along and have another shot, have a better shot. That's part of why you have to keep your share price growing and growing and growing. Otherwise, your share price falls. People get a bit interested because it's, on its knees.
Because the sharks are circling.
Yeah, the sharks are circling. There's blood on the streets. And so this is why investors put good people in place, like the board and the CEO, to grow the business. And if you're not doing that, step aside, let someone else do it. Anyway,
so watch the space.
Watch the space, yeah.
It's kind of interesting to buy shares at times like this, I think, just to see what happens.
Yeah.
Like, not lots. You wouldn't go,
it's funny because I would be like, Victoria's Secret, yeah. But now I'm like, oh, yeah. So if you want to invest alongside Brett Blundy, you can buy it on trading platform.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What's the ticker? The ticker, for anyone that doesn't know, is like kind of like the label.
Number plate.
Yeah, yes, I love that. Love that.
VSCO.
Let's go.
Let's go. Also, lastly, inflation in the UK has gone up.
So this is
Woohoo.
what we've been talking about for a few months, though, like the idea of Trump and tariffs and like, is it going to affect inflation? Is it happening in the US and other parts of the world or only the UK?
Well, the US is still at 2.3, so UK is at 3.5. So
the UK is actually the highest right now.
Yeah. And it's not driven by tariffs yet because it was April. So like you would probably start seeing that. Also, like the UK is the best place in terms of these tariffs. We'll probably see like deflation because, well, not deflation, but just not inflation going up as much because we've got such lower tariffs than everywhere else in the world. And we've just signed a UK-US trade agreement as well, which means we're probably one of the best positioned countries out of all of this.
Shit, yeah.
Woo!
Go the UK.
Yeah.
That's
Brexit
great
is
news.
good for one thing.
What is inflation everywhere? Like, is inflation at a pretty normal rate most parts of the world?
2.5 in New Zealand,
Mm-hmm.
about 2.9 in Australia. So yeah, they're all in that kind of.
That's pretty
2 to 3
low,
range.
right?
Yeah, but the US is 2.3, and there's a real risk that the next few reporting inflation figures are going to be up and up and up and up and up.
If that's the case, if inflation is starting to creep up, what is the first thing you would think to be doing with your money?
Check my savings are growing at a higher rate than inflation. So have as little as possible in my transaction account, always. And if I've got any money in my emergency fund or savings account or term deposit, it is growing at least 3.5% if I'm in the UK, which it is.
Oh shit, mine's only just over that. So essentially, because it sounds quite good when you're like, oh, my savings are growing at 3.8%. But it's like, if inflation's 3.5, then you're just keeping up.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
All relative. Got to look at it relative to inflation.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're in New Zealand, it's got to be above 2.5%.
Like, honestly, I'm having a Homer Simpson moment and all I can think of is a maple bacon pastry.
Oh.
Like, for some reason, I can
Are
see
they
it
just like all
floating above
floating
my
around?
head. Yeah.
Did you buy one?
No, I'm so hungry.
Oh.
I sort of secretly hoped you were going to buy me one.
I'm actually on this new high protein.
Oh, gosh.
No, I was like so sick of waking up more tired than when I go to sleep.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is wrong with me? Like, and also on my holiday in Palma, like just being absolutely ravenous that as soon as we sit down at the restaurant, I have to order something before we even order drinks, like just so consumed by food. And I was like, I'm just constantly thinking about food. I'm hungry. I'd be at work thinking, when can I eat lunch? Like,
Interesting.
it was just so, anyway. And I had this epic session with Emma Wiley, who's got Aloe Wellbeing.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my goodness. Like even like the next day, just changing your breakfast to have high protein. And I know some people might be thinking.
What is that?
So like yogurt with blueberries and like protein powder or something. And then having another breakfast, which I'm like, yeah, more food. Yeah. And like of eggs and avocado and, like just.
So your whole thing is high protein.
High protein just keeps you fuller for longer. And then honestly, the last few days.
Has it been better?
I've been like, oh, it's lunchtime, rather than being like hanging
What
out
about
to
energy
lunchtime.
levels?
Energy levels, yeah.
Really?
Haven't been waking up as tired.
Okay.
Yeah. I love
this.
it.
Yeah. Okay. I'm so hungry. I bought an egg yesterday to the podcast show. I'm going to pass it over to Emily. She can tell the egg
You
story.
brought eggs in your bag and they leaked everywhere.
We got to the podcast show. Also, shout out, that was the best podcast show in the world. It was so good. I just look over and Sophie's like hunched over a bit, peeling an egg, like getting it everywhere. And honestly, she ends up with just the yolk.
Oh no.
And then she just like puts it in the bin and then whips out another one and does exactly the same thing.
In my defense, when you accidentally underboil an egg and then the skin sticks to the outside, so when you peel it, all the white comes off, that's what was going on.
No, it's if you put them in the fridge and then you boil them from cold. If you boil them from room temperature, the shell comes off amazingly.
Are you joking?
I know. When I found that out,
that is the best hack you've told me ever.
Yeah.
Oh, I feel like we've covered it all.
Yeah.
International news, egg news, how to up your protein in your diet.
KiwiSaver.
Yeah, wow. Good Lord.
Plants.
What a day.
And lingerie.
I'm so hungry. Can you hear my stomach grumbling? Let's call it a day.
Yeah.
Have a great week, everyone.
Have a great week and we will see you
next Monday. Actually, we will be seeing you on next Monday. However, this Wednesday we're doing an archive episode with Amy Fraser. We're going to re-release that. Do you remember that conversation? It was all about like motherhood and like the invisible load. Like it was a really good
balancing
chat.
your family and your career.
Oh, and remember, she was the first person that started calling your family as a little asset.
Oh, yeah.
Remember, she was like, you're raising tiny
God, I
little
forgot
assets
about
running
that.
around. And I was like, oh, I love that. Anyway, that episode's being re-released this week. Thursday morning, New Zealand time, Wednesday evening, UK time.
Thank you so much for listening to The Curve Weekly. Make sure you hit the subscribe button to stay up to date with all the money, biz and stock market news. And if you like what you heard, we would love a review. Thank you.
Yes, we would love a review. But if you
Only
did
the
hate
one.
it, please, don't leave one if you hate it. No, but in all seriousness, could you please leave a review? Because it really helps other people find our cute little podcast.
And we hope you have a good week and see you next Monday.
Bye.
Bye. Sweet. Yeah. See you next Tuesday. Lol. See you next Tuesday. I mean Monday.
No, actually, though, new episodes out every Tuesday. Okay, quickly. The Curve was created to empower and educate you about investing, but we are not financial advisors.
Our platform exists for educational purposes only, and it doesn't provide personalized investing advice for your individual needs and should not be relied upon to make an investment or financial decision.
And always remember to do your own research before making any investment or financial decision.
We're here for any knowledge and support you need, but the final call is always yours.
And thanks for being here.
You got this.
Yeah, we know you got this.